Right, so continuing our test of the RAID 0 BTRFS, the SHR+BTRFS and the RAID 1+EXT4, next we're going to look at archiving. Now with archiving, what we're looking at here is how long it takes for each of the different storage areas to basically create a zip. What I'm going to do is create just a zip file within the NAS of each of these, which is going to basically push the CPU to do a bit more work, and we'll be able to see how long it takes to do these individual operations. So first and foremost, I'm going to leave the resource monitor there on screen, and next I'm going to select basically all of the visual media. So we're going to go into we're going to include the movies folder, the retro stock footage, and TV shows. These folders here should come to about 4 or 5 gigabytes, up 3.99, and these we are now going to convert into a zip. And we're going to see, one, how long it takes the storage volume in question, in this case the RAID 0 BTRF, how long it takes to do that, but moreover, we want to see how the system behaves during it. So we've got the clock here that was running from before, and what I'm going to do is get this clock up and running and begin this archive. So 3, 2, 1, go. We're going to compress that, and it's going to commit the operation up here, and we can see how hard the CPU is going to work when creating this zip on our RAID 0 BTRFS. Probably should keep the clock on screen as well, and this should give us real-time information about how long this task is going to take. We're already up to 9% because it isn't a lot of space. The real key thing here isn't space, it's number of files. Compression of things in zips, unless you do it with something like I think 7-zip and WinRAR and stuff like that, the actual compression of lots of files into one of these indexed zip folders doesn't save as much as you would like. The real test here is about multiple files. That's what we really want to look at. Now, I could have done a bigger file directory, but again, I don't have all the time in the world, and I will be doing more dedicated tests to each of these individual subjects very, very soon. But given I'm going to be doing these tests on all the other NAS brands too, to see how they deal with it, I thought I would just keep it right now nice and simple. So this zip test of 3.99 gig, I think it was 3.9 or 3.90, we're going to look, one, at how long it takes and what that CPU and memory performance is, because we've seen it spike to 100% a couple of times already, and we're at 25% at 1 minute and 20 odd seconds. So I'm going to fast forward now to the completion of the creation of this zip. And as the zip progression carries on, we're at 98% now. We've crossed over the 5-minute threshold. The CPU utilization has spiked a few times there, but we'll get ready to pause the clock at the completion of that, and it was done in 5 minutes and 22 seconds. So from there we can see that it spiked to 100% quite a few times, not absolutely loads. Memory stayed at a nice steady 20, just above %, but the zip creation was fairly straightforward. So let's reset that clock and we'll see how this compares to the other ones. We'll leave that zip there for now, and this time we'll move on to the SHR with BTRFS file system. Again, we're going to go for all of the media files, movies, retro stock footage, TV shows. We'll get that measured. There's our 3.9. I feel like we've missed one. Have we missed one? No, we haven't. So we'll carry on there. We'll get ready to create that zip there. And from there, we will reset the resource monitor. Get the resource monitor open again so we can see a nice clean slate. We'll right click, get that ready, and get ready to 1, 2, 3, go. Slight delay there, make sure you factor that in at the end. Maybe add an extra second or two there because my pen got in the way. But we'll leave that to do its next compression. And this is using SHR on a BTRFS file system. I can't help but have that nagging feeling I've missed something there on to do with the video files, but from what I can see, everything seems to be progressing as standard. Let's get that clock back on screen. You can see we're already at around 40 seconds. We'll leave that carrying on. and I will fast forward and I will catch you guys in around about 80% time. And we're closing in on completion here, and we can see that the time is going to be very, very similar to that of our 5 minutes and 22 from the RAID 0 BTRFS, with the added bonus, of course, that we've got to knock a few seconds off on this one because of my little error at the beginning. But is it done? It's done now, and we've got that measured at 5:28, which again is only 6 seconds difference, but if we forgive the error from earlier on, we can see that this is pretty much identical. So we'll minimize that and get ready for the final test of the three, and this will be on our RAID 1+EXT4. Once again, we're going to use all of our media folders. We're going to go there, retro stock footage, movies and TV shows. We're going to right click, look at properties, 3.98, and again we're going to close that, get the resource monitor up, get that ready, get the archive there, move our clock over and begin this test. 1, 2, 3, go. We'll get that there. We'll let the compression start at the top, and we'll get our clock open. So very similar results indeed, which is probably quite pleasing so far with regards to RAID 0 and SHR, because a number of you don't really use zips in a NAS capacity, but I do know that compression of files happens a lot in the background of NAS devices. And compression can be a real problem when you're needing to unzip files and folders as well. Now I could do an unzip test on this to see how quickly files are zipped and unzipped on this device. And I might do a quick test of that, but I'm not going to maybe save that for another video because I think you guys have seen enough on zips. On top of that, I'm also going to be doing some other tests with regards to deletion, which is going to be quite fun because it's always good to destroy things, isn't it? But I'll wrap things up here and stop talking, and I'll fast forward to the completion of this third zipped folder on the RAID 1+EXT4 format. And we're approaching the conclusion of the RAID 1+EXT4 zip, and with a time incredibly similar to that of the 5 minutes 20 or so. I think we're, pretty much identical there as the first one. So what we got there is 522, 528 and 521, but they're near enough identical. I think we can say that. And before I wrap things up on the subject of zips, why don't we see how long it takes? We'll do a real cursory check here. We're just going to do a quick cursory check of how long it takes to unzip and extract these files and folders. So we're going to extract this one. We're going to extract to a new folder. We're going to give that a name, and we're going to extract it here. We're just going to see if we've got any idea. Just a cursory glance, really. We're not going to go into too much detail here. We know it's going to take quite a lot of system performance, and I'll get the clock up and running, but if we include those extra few seconds there, just to go for it, and we're going to have a look and see how long it's taking to do that. We can see the CPU performance has already gone absolutely bananas, and we're going to leave that to carry on with it, how long it takes to extract that file that we created earlier on. And right now, we're probably going to add about 5 seconds to that, and I'll make sure in the edit I double check afterwards, because I didn't think it would be this quick, so I didn't bother with the clock. But we're already up to 30-odd%. We're almost at 40 there, so it should take somewhere around a minute and a half, something like that, to get the completion of this unzipping. And we're going to do exactly the same thing with the other two volumes just to see if there's absolutely any difference between them while we're doing this. Now, again, the final tests I'm going to be performing after this are going to be a deletion test, just of some of these files and see if they all delete at the same speed. And the final set of tests I'm going to do is when I completely remove the RAID 0 test, and we're going to use that to do some RAID rebuild tests on the SHR and the RAID 1. But we're drawing to a close, and it's done. It's extracted the folder in 1 minute 11 seconds there, but we should probably add around 5 seconds on top of that for my fiddling around and mucking around earlier on, and I'll double check that in the edit to make sure that's correct. Next, we'll go into our SHR+BTRFS, and we'll get the clock ready this time, and we'll get that extracted. 1, 2, 3, go. So we're going to right click there, and again, we are going to have to sort of take into account there's a few seconds leeway there, but we're going to get that on there, we're going to get the clock on there, and we're going to see how they compare. And if they should be pretty close. With the previous unzipping, I got it marked at 1 minute 11 seconds and maybe adding 5 to 7 seconds for my oversight at the beginning there. But right now, we seem to be matching a slower speed overall. Now, of course, the way I've initialized this test is slightly different. In the previous test, I started the unzipping and then I started the clock. And in this case, I've started the clock and then unzipping. But I do think we are going to be able to get some relatively realistic information about this, because right now the other one was at 1:11 and this is almost at a minute and it's only just past the halfway point. So regardless of how you see the initial testing and the way these have begun, I do think it's worth highlighting that the RAID 0 seems to have definitely been the fastest so far in unzipping these folders. Now, right now we're about 80-odd%. The previous test was about 1:11 with the extra seconds on. We're probably looking at somewhere around 1:25, 1:30. I'll get ready to release at the completion of the zip. It's probably going to be done any second now when it's done. And that's come in at 1:28. And again, there was a little dithering at the beginning, but we'll let that go for now. So we'll do the final test. We'll get ready on the RAID 1+EXT4. There's our zipped folder. And 1, 2, 3, go. We're going to right click. We're going to extract. That's probably been the smoothest dismount of all of them so far. So we'll go there and we'll see how long it takes for this to now extract that zipped folder. Now, when this is done, the next stage of test I'm going to do, and once again, as I've mentioned in other videos, because this is part X of Y, I have no idea, because these are all being recorded in one single session for me. I don't know until in post how many parts these are going to be, so I do apologize if the way these have been presented to you do seem a fraction fragmented. It's because without any idea about what the results are going to be, it makes it very hard for me to designate that a certain amount of time and a number of parts are going to take place, so do bear that in mind. But we're up to we're almost at the halfway point. We're seeing similar results to that of the SHR with BTRFS. But what I would say is this seems to be a fraction quicker. Only a fraction, the tiniest bit. Maybe it's to do with the way the files have been unzipped, maybe the order they're in. But at the moment, we're up to 70% as you can see on screen there. And at the same time, with the time just passing the 120 mark, it is going to be quite similar to the SHR, this RAID 1+EXT4. And I'm getting ready to pause the clock, and it is done. So that's 1 minute 31. That has been the slowest of the three. With the numbers I've got in front of me are 1 minute 11, 1 minute 28, and 1 minute 31. But what I would add, of course, is that there is a slight disparity there at the beginning. So we're going to do that. We're going to do one final set of tests now, and these tests are going to be about deletion. I'm going to delete a bunch of files, all of the test files that we've dealt with so far, and I'm going to delete all of them, and from there we're then going to see how long it takes for a deletion to take place. So once again, we're going to go back to our trusty RAID 0. I'm going to get my notes ready here in the background because I can't use my laptop because that's what you're looking at. And from there, I'm then going to start the deletion test to see just how quickly these different storage areas delete comparatively. So we're going to go with the BTRFS. We're going to select the zip file. We're going to select test 1, 2, 3. We're going to leave test 1 for another video. And we're going to delete those there. So everything but the initial test folder. So this is going to be quite a big old area of space. I reckon this is going to be 80 to 100 gigabytes. Let's get the calculation. Oh, only 64. Oh, it's because we're not using the original test folder. So what we're going to do is we're going to conduct a deletion of these. We're going to leave that open there. There's delete there. We're going to get the clock ready. We might even get the resource monitor open as well. Why not? Never hurts to have as much information as possible. We're going to get ready with delete. And we're going to start the clock now. Yep, sure I want to delete the lot of them. So start deleting those files and folders. We've got the clock. We'll move the clock over here. And this, once again, is an RAID 0 with BTRFS. So deletion's happening pretty quickly indeed. I'm getting ready to on the pause here because I think this is going to be very much a shorter test than all the other ones there. And we're already up to 40% there. So it's going to be under a minute with any luck. And we're going to see just how these go. Good initial results right now. One would assume a RAID 0, both in terms of read and write and deletion actions, should be better than those found on a RAID 1 or SHR. I'm just holding down this button here and get ready to pause it once deletion is completed. We're almost there. And delete it. Right, so 51 seconds. Put that there. Next, we're going to make our way into the SHR+BTRFS. Once again, we're going to go with that one. We're going to go with the test files, and we're going to go for the share one we created. Test the properties, 60% odd, whatever it is. Get it open there. And we'll get ready with that deletion. We can see the CPU went bananas there during that deletion earlier on. We'll get the clock ready, reset the clock, and we'll start the deletion in 3, 2, 1, go. And again, we'll get that up there. We'll get the clock on screen. And we're going to, the time to beat is 51 seconds for the RAID 0. Now, once again, I'm not silly here with regards to RAID 1 versus SHR versus RAID 0. I know there are inherent data security issues with RAID 0. RAID 0 should never be utilized in any form where the data cannot afford to be lost. RAID 0 gives you no redundancy. This is about performance differences because a number of you might use a RAID 0 area in order to conduct high read-write operations, editing videos and photos and music in post, and there are benefits to that. So there is a place for RAID 0, but not as far as data security is concerned. So do remember that when choosing your RAID. Don't just base everything on read-write speeds. So we're getting ready, and it was 58 seconds. So it took about 7 seconds longer than the RAID 0. So once again, unsurprisingly, the RAID 0 giving us the best performance yet. And finally, the RAID 1 with EXT4. CPU, again, similar there on screen. We'll get ready with our deletion. We've got them selected. We'll get that ready. We'll get the clock. 1, 2, 3, go. Deletion, delete. Get that there. And we can still see, by the way, I don't know if you've noticed, we can still see the original spikes in the performance. That was the spike during the initial test of the CPU there. And we can still see the bump there as well. And we can see CPU utilization was higher and more consistent throughout the previous test of deletion. But right now, with a time difference of around 7 seconds, I'm assuming the RAID 1 with EXT4 should fall somewhere between them. Although the unzipping test does seem to take a pinch longer, about 3 to 5 seconds. It'll be interesting to see, or the unzip test I should say, how it behaves now during this deletion. Not a huge amount of data, but I think a lot of what we're doing today, we can compare that against larger data as well, because there's such a mix of different file types and different RAID and file formats. But we're up to 60% right now, and we've already passed into more than a minute. So we've already taken longer than any other test. So we're having a look here. Memory utilization is indeed higher as well. It's using more memory to commit this deletion. So again, in terms of deleting files, EXT4 and RAID 1 is performing by far the weakest overall. Very disappointing work here from the RAID 1. What I would have thought was well known there, and it's 1 minute 30 overall. So deletion wise, it's almost 50% slower than SHR and BTRFS, and even more so than RAID 0 with BTRFS. So those have been our tests with regards to zipping, unzipping, traditional read-write, upload, deletion, and the works. And in my next series of videos, I am going to be carrying on, and I say my next video, for me it's going to be mere seconds. I'm going to go ahead and completely destroy that RAID 0 because we want to use those disks for something else. So this RAID pool here, I'm going to start deleting it for my next video and completely destroying it and removing it entirely. So I will see you on the next video, where we're going to be carrying on with the RAID 1 and SHR, which are BTRFS and ext4, and we're going to compare what happens when we want to add drives to these RAID volumes, or if we remove a disk. So I'll see you on those. Otherwise, cheerio, and look forward to the next video.